All right, so get Joanna in here.
Taylor Swift, a witch?
Oh,
You know it.
Fantastic. I mean, call to the chiefs.
How could they? Really?
Okay. I think we're all. I won't know until you turn it on, but I'll let you know when the time, that cheese. Oh, look at that.
Oh, wow.
Not gonna happen.
You did, Lori.
All
Oh, I should have brought my camera up from downstairs.
Reminder, this is delayed. Oh, that was so that it was tilted.
Remember, we want to be sure that we can see them. Because sometimes we just see the side, like mine, it's the whole side of my face. Really
Okay.
attractive.
All right, now you'll notice it's, I'm not sharing this anymore, but it's just delayed. So you'll see this, it will not be a mirror image.
That's okay, I'm not gonna pay attention to that.
Okay, all right,
Just
good.
Okay, Rachel, do you want to say in your garb? Because I'm gonna introduce them myself.
Yes,
So, but if you need to say anything,
yeah, I'll say a couple things.
okay, real quick, get your business out of the way. 'Cause
I know.
that's not why we're here.
Welcome, everybody. We're very excited. Today is the 79th house concert with Story Crossroads. We have people here in person. We have people who are live streaming, and then people who will be catching it after that as well to celebrate all of this. And Story Crossroads, what do? We are a storytelling arts education nonprofit. And so throughout the year, there's always things that we do. And every month we have a house concert, every month we have virtual workshop. And then once a year in May, we have our summit and festival, which is hybrid. So then that also gives you a chance to enjoy it no matter what way it needs to be. And we're very excited. I'm going to actually have Cassie Ashton introduce, which we're very grateful for the Ashtons for having this hosting. So round of applause. All right, so we'll hand it over.
All right, when Rachel asked me to host, she said I got to choose, and I went, oh, I don't know what I want to do. Because I have known Lori and Omar for a very, very, very long time. Actually, probably Omar longer than anyone else, because we actually studied at theater together at Rick's College. So that was a really long time ago. I don't have many people that I can actually say still know me, since I moved around so much. So that's really cool. And then he married this like amazing woman, and we became fast friends. And so it's just, I love watching them do the things they do. But at some point, Lori has written one women's shows, and we've hosted some of her things here. But she started talking about this one woman's show that she wrote about an ancestor. And then lo and behold, somebody wanted to turn it into a film. And I was really curious about that. And so last week it debuted at the Utah Film Festival. And I am happy, some of us went and watched it, and it was really fabulous. But it will also be showing at the Zion's Film Festival on March 1st. So not this Friday, but next Friday. So if you didn't get to see it, you might want to go in to the Searchell and watch it there. I am happy to report that at the Utah Film Festival, they actually were the only film to win 3 awards. And they won Best Cinematography, Best Female Director. So we get the chance, and then Audience Choice, right? No, and so I asked them where was the award, but they left it, and I'm like, we're working on that.
Oh, all right, it's right.
Humility. No, but I thought it would be really special because, and when I was talking to Lori a little bit about it, and she was telling me about a little bit of the process of taking a baby, taking a show that you've written, and then somebody else, and I thought maybe she wrote the screenplay, and she said, oh, no. Cheryl wrote it. I'm like, oh, really? Now I'm intrigued. So that was partly why I wanted him here, because I just wanted to see how that collaboration happened. And just to see, because a lot of us are writers and a lot of us do things. And what if we could take some of our things and put them into film? And some of us have learned a little bit about filming on Zoom, but we would like to learn a little bit more. So just lots of questions that we may have, but we're going to go ahead and just let them talk about that. Just in case I don't have a chance, I also want to remind everyone that through Story Crossroads, and if you're a member of USG, you have access to, Lori and Omar did write a workbook on crafting your one-person show. I don't think she can see it. Oh, but anyway, so if you want, if you're thinking, oh, maybe I will write a one-person show, there's your template right there. Now we thought we would start out a little bit. You guys might have to move. We're going to show you a clip from the movie Idea, which if you haven't seen it,
This is the trailer.
and you can find it on YouTube if you want to go back and stuff. But then we'll then turn the mic over to them and then let them kind of share a little bit about the process. And partly first I want Lori to tell them kind of what it was like to write the one woman show, because she had some insight that I found. For those of you that understand Aleph and Hay, all of a sudden I got it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there is a difference. So, but she really helped me with that one. So there's this, you can see I've had a lot of fun with them. My mind's just going. So, all right, go ahead and show the trailer and then we will turn it over to Lori.
They tell me I am a witch. They have wagered their own salvation and mine on knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that I be a witch.
Ann Foster, why do you even now refuse the light of God?
Which art in heaven? It be not what they say about you, but what they whisper. The kingdom come, thy will be done.
Start again!
Surely time will introduce some other scandal to occupy their minds.
Fear, you're wrong.
We must know if you bear the witch's mark, the place where the devil enters your body.
What else did you see at your dinner with the devil?
I curse you.
You are the sacrifice. Cherie Foster, speak now if you want to show of mercy.
Why do you hold these girls?
You oblige us to root the devil out of them.
Okay.
You can see this woman's artistry in that.
Through and through. You can hear me, right? Okay. Well, thank you for being here, first of all. We really appreciate it. And thanks to those that are tuning in to live stream and we'll watch it later. We appreciate it. Yeah, I guess we could start off, let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. 2.5 years ago, my son contacted me and he said, "Mom, did you know you're related to a witch?" And those of you that know me well know I've always been drawn to the crone figure, the wise woman, and the witch. And so that was so thrilling to me to find that out. And he gave me the name of my ancestor, Ann Foster, and I went and was able to pull up on the LDS genealogical site the line. And sure enough, she is a direct ancestor, a direct line ancestor. She's my 11th great grandmother. And so I began to read about her and her story, and it was so compelling and so different than a lot of the other women that were accused. She was a unique person in a unique situation. And so I researched that and thought, I want to do something with this. living in Rexburg, we don't get a lot of opportunities to storytell. And that's actually why I began the concept of putting together one-woman shows that I could tour and take other places, because if we wait around for Rexburg to do anything, it'll never happen. So, so anyway, I began working on it, and I researched and researched. I wrote for a grant from the Idaho Commission on the Arts, and I got a $1,100 grant to have the time to research, and we actually were able to fly back to Salem and Andover, where she actually is from, and visit a lot of the sites and meet some people. Omar received a grant at the same time too, and he was able to do a wildlife study while he was back there, so it wasn't all about me. But anyway, I began to write it after that, and it was really being difficult. I wanted to just write it as a story, and tell it third person about her. But I wrote it out and read it to Omar, and even as I was reading it, I could tell this was so boring. It was so dry and dull and stuffed with facts, and it just wasn't working. And so I threw that out and thought, okay, because I was still focused on seeing it in a standing storyteller version, I thought, okay, I will do some narration, and then I'll do some in Anne's character, and do some narration and in her character. And that didn't work either. It was very, very sing-songy and disjointed. It just wasn't coming together. And then I was in a writing group with Omar and some of his former students and his cronies. And really, particularly Omar basically said, you have to write this as a play. You just have to write this as a play, which was very intimidating for me because I've never written a play. It's always been stories. And so I began, and it was okay, but it just wasn't working. And this had been over about 6 months' time of trying to get this thing done. And I had to get it done because I received money to do it. That's one good thing about a grant, actually, can I just say, is it forces you to do what you say you want to do. And then Omar finally said one day, I can picture it in my mind, I was reading it to him, we were driving through Yellowstone, and he said, you are writing this as if it's the woman knowing she's going to die. You're writing it that way. And I thought, you're exactly right. He said, you should be writing about a woman fighting to live. And that was like, you know, one of those light bulb moments. And I realized he was exactly right. And after that, it really started to come together. Her character started to come off the page to me, and I'm really proud of the end result. I tell the story through her, and do go into a few other characters. When I do another character, it's not like his line, her line, his line, her line. It's like she, and then they will talk for a bit, and then it'll go back. So it's not really flip-floppy, because I've never been good at you know. But anyway, I was really proud of it, and it worked out really well, I think. Cherie is a former student of Omar's at BYU, Idaho. We were actually in a play together. We were trying to figure it out tonight, over 20 years ago. Omar's version of Cinderella, this castle needs good scouring. And I was the wicked stepmother, and she was Burble, my wicked stepdaughter. We actually had a physical fight on stage, which I won. Anyway, but Cherie and her husband Matt have been in the film industry for a long time down here in Salt Lake and Orem. They've done a lot of work behind the camera. They've done a lot of work in front of the camera. Cherie is amazing. She's truly amazing. And they came up and saw it, and I'll let you take from there a little bit.
Sure. I love telling this story because you'll see. Anyway, so I had been married for maybe 2 months, no, a year, I guess, we've been married for about a year. And I told my husband, hey, I wanna go see my friends play up in Rexburg. I didn't tell him that it was a one-woman show. I didn't tell him that she was a woman in her 60s or whatever. And I waited until we were an hour into the drive before I told him, hey, it's a one-woman show about a middle-aged woman who's a witch. Is that cool? And he basically, obviously was like, well, I'm in the car, we're not turning around. And during the show, I mean, I enjoyed it because I always love hearing these kinds of stories. And I was worried about how he was taking it. So at the end, you know, I'd had a great experience and I turned to him and I was like, well, and he said, do you think she'd want to turn it into a movie? And I was like, are you serious? He's like, it was compelling. Where were you? Like, did you not listen to the story? It's good. So because of that, and Matt was the one who wanted, and he hadn't, I think we had dinner together beforehand, but he hadn't met them. But right after we went up and talked to him about the possibility of turning it into a film.
And you know how someone says something like that, it's like, yeah, that would be nice. Aw. But we actually did it. They took my script and adapted it into a screenplay. It was intended to originally be about a 20-25 minute short. But as we worked on it and it went along, we knew there was more that had to be said with it. And so it's actually 1 hour and 6 minutes long, which is very short for a feature, but it is long enough to be considered in the feature category. Yeah. And I have to say, I felt such a connection and a kinship to this ancestor that I wanted to be true to her story. I knew I owed her that. And I had worked very hard in mind to keep it out of the realm of being sensational, because there's enough of that on Witch and Witchcraft. And her story was compelling enough. It didn't need extra stuff thrown in by me. And so I was very possessive of it and very protective of it. And had it not been that it was Cherie, who I trust completely, I don't think I would have let it go to anybody else. And so I felt like I was handing over a child to her, and she took it and did wonderful things with it. And so.
Yeah, I will say, in this process, first of all, it's a very difficult thing to find out 40 years into your marriage that you married a witch. It's kind of like coming to Rexburg an hour in, can't go back.
Should have had plenty of clues.
But it's very interesting to me because Cherie, I probably said this to Cherie a couple of times when she was a student, but because first off, she was my Elizabeth Proctor in the best production ever put on at BYU, Idaho. And just a magnificent performance. And so I knew Cherie can do anything. I had no idea what amazing filmmakers Matt and Cherie are, but I will tell you, when you see the film, you will see the reason they got cinematography and women filmmaker, because it is movie magic. It is a gorgeous film. And I can say that for a couple of reasons, because on this product, I was a small acting role and I was the gopher. I was, craft services. We should spend about 20 minutes on that. But there's time. But I used to say, I don't know why you would write a play without a witch in it. And probably 60% of the plays I've written have a witch in it. One of the first things Cherie did was a short play we did at Rick's College, probably. Called Horned Witches, taken from a Irish folk legend. And I will tell you the reason that, and then I'll give this back, but when I was a kid, my dad was a college professor of political science, And so we had books all over the house. And in my chair where we sat and watched the old black and white Philco, there was a 7-book volume on witchcraft. And on the back of the volume was, on each book, on each there were 7 books, was the transformation of a witch. And I found that so frightening and yet so intriguing. And then my dad took me to the Crucible at Midwestern College years ago. So the reality is that I want to say about this, first off, I'm just going to brag about both of these guys for a second, and then I'm going to turn it back over to them. She's no longer, but she's been very insecure about her acting abilities. And I thought, you have been Brazilla, you have been, who's this castle character?
The Grisella.
Grisella, they're always in something with an L. And she's done so many things, but she just couldn't quite bring herself to say, and so when we were getting ready to shoot this, she would say, you gotta teach me how to act. You gotta teach me how to act. Okay, well, I've done Scarecrow and Mrs. King, so I'm sure I can teach you. But we started going at it, and I finally said, Lord, you can do it. You gotta let go. You have to let go. And you will see in this film that she did. It is a magnificent performance. And on Cherie's side, I had no idea what a professional they were. And they are a gem of the Utah film industry. And the fact that we've been able to latch onto them has just been amazing. And so I watched them. I got to watch this process. I was going to Zupa's. It was miserable. Picking up
Getting lunch
15 different lunch orders. I was going to Crumble Cookie when we were going to 12 at night and little kids with us. But I will tell you, I got to watch this process. I've been kind of a cheerleader for this group because honestly, they deserved everything we did. I'm not going to say they. We deserved everything we got this weekend, and we're going to get more. But it is a gorgeous product. I hope you'll come and see it because it does take a different tack than any other media I've ever seen taken on the Salem witch trials. It's really not about the trials. It's about a woman's a desperate attempt at sanity, at finding life. And that's the great thing about what her script was about, which by the way just kept getting better and better and better. She acts as if it suddenly turned around. It got better and better and better until we finally got it to this slate that it was ready. I will say I directed her in the original stage version. A lot of that kind of went like, okay, now why don't you try? No, you're doing a good job. And then I watched Cherie tell her things and she said, oh, okay, I'll do that. But in any case, you should go see it. It is an amazing piece.
Anyway.
Sure, and another real quick plug for Lori. She didn't win the award, but she was nominated for Best Actress. You talk about wrong. She was absolutely wrong. She definitely should have won. So I guess I will talk a little bit about just the process of taking a one woman show and turning it into a film. And I love that you talked about staying true to the story and things like that, because that was actually the thing. So even though I won the award for Best Woman Filmmaker, it really was a definite joint venture with my husband. He and I both directed. He and I both have different tactics for directing and different styles. He focuses a little more on some of the technical things and the way the picture is looking, and I'll focus a little bit more on the emotion and the acting and things like that. So together we create these really beautiful pictures. So when I write screenplays all the time. I have I think I have like 11 or 12 feature-length screenplays written in my lifetime. And I write short screenplays all the time, and my husband knows this, and I've always told him I want to start filming these things. Let's make something. We're filmmakers, let's do our own thing. We have all the stuff we need, let's do it. And it wasn't until we saw Lori's show that he was like, that story is compelling enough for me to say, yes, let's do it. So, I knew going into it that I was gonna have a bit of not a fight and not a challenge, but it was going to take a lot of work to make sure that whatever we were going to do to the story or to the script, it was gonna have to pass through my husband's like rigorous, what is acceptable for a compelling story, which wasn't too hard because this is compelling material. But he also, one of his stipulations was we have to stay true to what we saw on stage. We have to stay true to what Lori brought to it. And we want to, as much as she was worried about us making sure we stayed true to the story, Matt was just as worried about making sure we stayed true to the story because it was so compelling for him. So, and a lot of the things we talked about were the idea that the Salem witch trials do get sensationalized a lot. And it usually is a lot about like, oh, the crazy girls, look at those crazy girls, and look at those magistrates. And we wanted to take the focus away from some of those things and put it back on an individual and just say, this is how this horrific event in history affected one person. And so when we're talking about how we can best accomplish that, I know in a one-woman show, it's a little easier to not give emphasis to other characters, but as soon as you bring them into a scene, then, you know, they're there. And if you've got the crazy Salem girls and they're screaming and wailing and throwing themselves around, it's going to draw some focus. So we chose to do things like we made them shadows that she would see on the wall. I guess I should explain part of what we wanted to do with her story too. We knew we wouldn't be able to go on location. We knew we had zero money. We were going to try to crowdfund some money, but we also knew even with that, it wasn't going to cover much. So we have a garage that my husband keeps his film gear in. And when it's all cleared out, it's about 20 by 30. And so it's not huge. I mean, how big is this room? Is this about that?
This section right here is 25 by 40.
Yeah, it's a little smaller. So, we knew that we could build a jail cell and make it feel a little claustrophobic. We knew that that was the space that we had to use. And with that, in order to tell some of the flashbacks and things that were going to happen to her, we knew we needed an interesting way to do that. So and Lori, I believe you did this in your one-woman show anyway. She's in the jail cell in the one-woman show, and she's retelling events from her life. So when if you remember from the trailer, there are moments where she's in just a black space or things like that, or anytime she's anywhere not in the jail cell, we envisioned those as flashbacks and memories. And we wanted to do some artistic things to kind of move her from the jail into those areas. So we have shots where she'll turn around in the jail and she turns into that space in the next shot. So a little movie trickery, things like that. And then because of that, because we were going with this artistic kind of vibe on that, the Salem girls, we turned into shadows that she interacted with on the wall, because we felt like Anne herself probably wouldn't have paid much attention to these girls other than the fact that they're ruining her life. So if she's trying to remember them, if she's sitting in her jail cell trying to remember them, what will she remember about them? She'd remember that they're scary. She'd remember they came out of nowhere. She'd remember that they were wild and crazy, but like features, probably not. Actual names, probably not. Voices, whatever. So we wanted to, oh yeah.
Lori, just because I've seen the film and some of the others haven't, maybe just give a brief kind of overview of how Anne ends up being accused of being.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. She was in her 70s. She's an older resident of Andover. Anne was married to a man that was 30 years older than her. He was 50 when they married and she was 20. But it was a love marriage. They were very happy, and he was known throughout Andover as being a very kind person. And they had 5 children and 1 infant that didn't survive. And then after he died, her son-in-law named Hugh Stone murdered his wife, her daughter. it was the first murder in Andover. She was expecting their 8th child when she was killed. And so because of that, he was also the first hanging in Andover. He was in prison for 9 months and then finally hung. And that event alone singled her out. Because of that, in her family, she was known throughout New England because that's the first time that had ever happened. And so she's already kind of marked in a way.
Well, it's partially because he called her out.
Yeah, he called her out from the gallows and said, look to her, people. And we have the actual. Okay. Well, anyway, he calls her out and accuses her of having the evil eye. And in those days, when someone is that close to death and speaks, then it's considered, for the most part, to be true, what they're saying. And so she was definitely singled out after that. And then other events happen in her family that she's become the other, you know. And so when Thomas Ballard, Joseph, when Joseph Ballard's wife became ill, Elizabeth Ballard, and no one could figure out why they suspected witchcraft, and he went and recruited girls from Salem, brought them to Andover, and they singled out Anne, which it's not surprising they would do because Anne was known. And so that kind of began her descent. Did that answer your?
Yeah, no, I think that's
Yeah.
because then they kind of understand that, you know, how somebody gets accused, because once you're accused, it's hard to get unaccused.
Mhm.
Yeah, you either prove that you're not a witch, but how do you prove you're not a witch when you're? You know,
Right.
Yeah.
You don't.
You don't.
Usually
Well,
kills you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They did, yeah.
And so today what happened on social media just goes through a rumor mill.
Yeah.
And so, and then it's baked in. I just want to say a little bit about what happened with this, the first show that went to the screenplay, because you understand, once you take something that's in one media and it goes to another, it becomes a different product. And that's the scary part, because you have to say, yeah, I have to give this over. And for example, when they took Wicked from the book, Stephen Schwartz took that and he talked to McGuire, what's his name?
Gregory McGuire.
Gregory McGuire. He said, you know, I'm gonna have to change this. And Gregory McGuire said, well, I changed the wizard. You know, so it's yours now. You take it and you make it, you know, and that's what happened here, because it's so wonderful to see, because Cherie is an amazing writer. There's 2 amazing writers working at this. So that's the joy of that. And I would say, as storytellers, again, sometimes you have to recognize, is this story just I mean, it's never just a story, but is this a monologue story? Is it want something? Is this a play? Is this a screenplay? Is this a novel? Whatever it is. And that was the interesting thing, because it jumped very easily in the sense of the script, not in the writing. The writing is never easy, but it went so well. And when you see this film and you see what Cherie's done with it, you'll know that, yeah, you've got to do things. And I will tell you, when you watch the film, there are parts that this is this close to being a horror film. And it is not, but it is that close, because when you see what's happening in someone's mind, you know, you realize we create horror in our minds. So anyway, I just wanted to mention about that.
Anyway, once it was in Cherie's hands
And
Matt's,
And Matt's.
Cherie and Matt's, if he was here, I would have said. We began trying to get money, because that is the hardest part of making a film, is getting money. So we did an Indiegogo campaign. We raised, I think, $9,000 through that. I actually, by the time it was all done, had received 3 grants from the Idaho Commission on the Arts, which I have to be very grateful for. I received the first one to research the one-woman show. I received the second one to pay my expenses of traveling back and forth from Rexburg to do the filming. And then I received a third one just a little while ago to pay for submitting it to festivals. So we got, very gratefully got some help through that. And we did have some other personal donations. I think Matt and Cherie put in probably
Yeah.
1,000
Yeah.
somewhere in there, and we did
Somewhere,
too, put in
yeah.
money as needed, desperately needed, and so we managed to make the whole movie for under $15,000, which is incredible.
It is incredible,
Partly because
absolutely
of
incredible.
Sherry's talent and that with creating the set. Sherry did all of the editing. They did
Wardrobe.
sound editing. Sherry and I together did wardrobe. I remember being at home sewing 4 magistrates. Oh, I'm trying to, anyway, so
It
that's
also-
kind of,
Yeah, we also were really lucky in that when people heard about the story,
Yes,
they volunteered time. So that we wanted to pay everybody. We definitely didn't pay them a good rate. But we had a lot of people who wanted to be involved in it and just said they were donating their time and we didn't need to pay them. So that was another
It
revenue
was.
source.
yeah.
and yeah,
William McAllister, who plays one of the magistrates, we were in our elation after the festival and getting pictures taken and all that. He said 2 or 3 times, this Ivy Witch family is so cool. And you know how it is when you're in a theater production, and I've only been in, as an actor, I've only been in, you know, casts that you saw in a day and then you left. This is one where people got so close, and they did. I mean, everybody was so great about taking, you know, not that much money, but threw themselves into their roles.
and for me, I had done very, very little film. I had done a Bank of Commerce commercial, said, snap. And a couple of very small roles in very small indie films, you know, I'm talking 2 or 3 lines is all. And then this came along and it was, I don't know, take it from there. But anyway, so do you have anything else or does anyone have any questions? Yes.
And make sure you keep the questions in.
Okay,
And I have a question.
okay.
Okay, so my first one, Omar, you started to cover, as an actor though, transferring, you mentioned the medium, but transferring as an actor from story to film, tell us about your process and facial expressions, gesture.
Well, yeah, the first thing,
transferring.
transferring from being a stage performer to a film performer. The first thing I learned is I don't have to talk so loud. You're mic'd, you know, and you can whisper and it's picked up.
Yeah.
They would stop. And, you know, in theater, you show things. I've heard this said, in theater, you show things, in film, you think. And I think for me, it boiled down to being relaxed enough and kind of get out of my own head enough. First off, there was a lot of people depending on me. Because, you know, it was all revolved around Anne, and I didn't have time, truly, literally did not have time to overthink it. The first scene that we shot, I'm not gonna tell you which one it is, but I watched that and thought, oh man, because it was relatively theatrical, you know? Now, the way we incorporated it into the film, it actually works. They found ways. But it was, after that, it was really mainly getting in Anne's head and just letting go, which is not easy to do for me, but can I say something? Yeah.
Some of my favorite moments watching Lori's performance on screen are actually, I love to do this thing as a director and as an editor where I let the camera roll for a bit. I don't say cut and I make them perform for a second, even if they don't have dialogue. So there's this one moment where Lori she's finished her line and she's just kind of thinking and like sitting in the moment. And I left it in the movie and it becomes like this just beautiful transition of her thinking about one moment of her life into the next moment. There are times too where I like to keep there's a moment where she's talking about how her son-in-law killed her daughter. And, we started the camera, we started the sound, started the take essentially, but, Matt hadn't said action yet. So Lori was about to start, she has this moment where she's like, because she takes a breath and he's like, and action, and she's like, and it works in this moment so well, because it's like, you can just see that it's a real reaction to her circumstances, even though it's a little bit Lori, a little bit Anne reacting. Yeah, that's, anyway, some of my favorite moments of your acting were when you were just thinking.
That's funny. This was such a kind cast too. I worked for the scenes on the ground. I have 2 artificial knees and an artificial hip. And so I had on 2 pairs of knee pads, and they would have 2 like yoga mats. And then they would have all this straw and dirt over it, so I could kneel on that. And as soon as we would be done filming, like 4 guys would run over to help up the old lady. And it was so humiliating, but nice. I kind of make my way back to my chair until it's time to go again. But anyway, did you have another question, Annette, or should we?
Can I make one comment on that?
Yeah.
Because I think, and maybe you're getting at this, that section where, when you're on stage, even as a storyteller with a mic, your expressions have to be bigger. They have to be bigger, and you're not worried about sounding necessarily natural. And I will tell you that, I don't know how many times I've gone into a casting director and then they've said, "You're a theater actor, aren't you?" And so and sometimes I think that it bothers me because you gotta have some respect that I can pull back, but in any case, one of the things that I noticed again, and I think you need to understand as a storyteller, when you get on film, you're sitting at, you're the person you're usually looking at is the camera. That's not always true. But the camera becomes the audience. And when it's that close, you then can realize, okay, I don't need to throw my voice. I don't know. It's just a sense of relaxing, which to me is always the basis of all acting, which is relaxation. And then allowing expressions to come through the eyes. That's the one thing, some of the close-ups you guys created, and you see the eyes, and it's just gorgeous. And so, the other thing I'll tell you is those people still work their tails off. I remember watching her, and she'd be on stage constantly. I'd be sitting there eating a crumble cookie going, I don't want to do that. This is hard stuff. You have no idea how difficult this was for a person who held the whole film in her hands. And she does a magnificent job.
There's aspects too. We wanted to keep a storytelling feel to it because it was so effective that way, the way that she did it. And it's an odd film because of it. Like when people watch it, there are probably people that would be bored because they don't understand. There's not a cut every 3 seconds. Like, where's the superhero? I don't understand. But she is still telling stories. She is still storytelling, and it's tricky in film because, on stage, the person you're talking to is here. And like Omar was saying, the person she was talking to, we had to create, for one thing, we had to create in her mind, or we had to create in the space. And then she had to be focused towards that in some ways. And we created, no one, we created just an ambivalent, in her mind, she's to the point where she's just talking to someone. We don't necessarily need to know who, but Anne Foster needed to know who she was talking to. So Lori did. But in keeping some of the storytelling elements, she's doing long monologues. She's doing long chunks. It's like, people say I did a great job adapting the screenplay, but I really just feel like I took her script and I copied and pasted, and I was like, let's just add a part in for myself real quick and then we'll call it good. But she's doing so much storytelling And she has to be doing it in a natural way as opposed to in a performing kind of way. So it's not even, you can't even hide in the luxury of like, oh, it's a scene with dialogue and I'm with another person. No, you're still storytelling, but now make it natural. Like now make it less performative. Now do it exactly opposite of how you would do it on stage.
What was it like, you get really dirty. I mean, what was that like? I mean, at least for storytelling, you know, the audience gets to imagine it, but when you're doing the film, you're creating some of that for them. And
Yeah, it helped honestly to have really long hair and which I'd let go. Oh, she said, what was it like to get really filthy and dirty in, you know? And it was interesting. It helped to have long hair that could be very mangy. It's long now, but I have already cut off about 10 inches from what it was when we filmed. And it was like, you know,
Great.
and it was interesting every morning to go into makeup and have someone put fake dirt on me. You know, and that was interesting. Putting fake dirt on your feet, you know.
Chained and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Comfortable?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. The hardest part was trying to suck in my gut in the costume that I had. Anyway, yeah, it was, but even doing things like that were kind of tools that helped me transition into the character. So that by the time we were ready to start shooting scenes, I had to have time to ponder and think and watch the process of what she was transforming me into. And that really kind of helped put me into the character.
Yeah, I just wanted I just wanted to mention too about the idea of vocals in both, because even as a storyteller, you know, if you're gonna say, and whisper to this person, and you're still going like this, which is not natural. So, but you know that you can whisper. Now, you still have to pick up on a mic.
Yeah.
So it becomes a whole different process, but the thing that when she's talking about just getting dirty, you know how it is on stage, on the stage play, well, it's all painted on, this is just real. And it actually gives that sense. And I was amazed at the moments when, you know, she's getting extremely emotional and how well it plays, because it's not too big, but it is big emotion, you know. And so anyway.
When I was 18, I went to a summer acting camp in New York at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And the one thing I remember from that is that true anger is quiet. And I tried to incorporate that. It's like the hurricane, but the eye of the hurricane is quiet and still. And people don't try to be angry. They try not to be angry. And that's where the real expression, I think, comes. Did you have a question right here in the front?
Yes, I did. So I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know if they show her execution at the end, or how did your ancestor?
Well, if I tell you that.
You don't have to.
You want to know or not?
Well,
I hate to give it away if anyone has it.
I would say, look it up. You can find Ann Foster online and you'll get the dates and all the things.
Yeah, it'll tell you exactly what happened.
But I will tell you, one of the beautiful things that happened the other night that we always wait for is that there's a silence at the end of the film. There's a silence at the end of the film that most of the times people start clapping, but there's a silence as the film goes through some credits. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And the things we filmed in Boston area and or just added so much. And then the last thing is, she's just talking about the acting term is playing opposites. That it's easy when once a person cries, the mystery's over. You know, so if I'm sad, I'm cry, you know, it's over, no mystery. If I'm trying not to cry, if I'm fighting emotion, which we all do, you know, we all try not to get angry. I'm sorry. Anyway.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
So I apologize, I wasn't able to go and see, but I will see it, you know, on March 1st. I've always judged a film by whether or not the director could jerk me around, right? and do things to me emotionally that I didn't expect, or touch me in a way that it was deeper than I thought would happen, right? And I must compliment you, because Cassie came in the door, and I was like, how was it? And she was like, well, it was really, really good, but it wasn't really, really happy. And I just thought,
was real.
yeah, that's what she, those were, her words. It was real.
I think you felt it was
Are you able to
real,
summarize?
that's all I can say.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't sensationalized at all, but now, so how do you go from where you're at with it now, right? And submitting it to festivals and that type of thing. Is there a way for you to productize it, to get this kind of quote unquote storytelling back into Hollywood, back into the mainstream, so that we just don't have car chases and bombs and people jumping out of airplanes?
You want to kind of repeat his question?
Yeah, so to summarize, the comment to begin this question is that he had heard that the film is very real.
Yeah.
And not very happy.
Yeah.
And, then the question is where do you take it now to get this kind of storytelling back into a mainstream area? And that is a really great question. We've talked a lot at length about what do we do with this now. We didn't ever see this as something that was going to make us $1 million.
Right.
We actually, when we started it, we started, like Lori was saying, as a short film. We thought that it would be a short film. The script itself was about 30 pages long, and generally rule of thumb in film is a minute per page. So we thought, we'd have a short film, it'd be a long short film, but it's not gonna be longer than like 30-ish, 30, 40 minutes maybe. And when it came out at 50, we started talking about, okay, do we cut it? How do we cut this film? How do we cut this story? And we couldn't see ways to do it without doing a disservice to the actual story itself. So then we said, well, then let's add to it. And we ended up filming more scenes about a year later, making it a little longer so that it just could be in the feature world in any festival that we went to. So with all that said, because we were intending it to be a short, we didn't look at how do we sell it, because you don't really sell shorts. They really just act as calling cards for directors. There's something that you can say, I created this, my husband and I created this, look what we can do. Let us make a feature for you. So since it turned into a feature, everyone does expect it to be something that, okay, now how do you make your money off of that? And we're like, we don't know, we were not prepared for that. But as we've worked on it, because and the audiences that we've showed it to, having a reverence for it and having so many questions afterwards about the story, about Anne herself, we know that there's a need for it. We know that there's a desire to see this kind of film and to have this kind of art being displayed. We've postured that maybe it could end up somehow in an educational realm, like as a DVD available in visitor centers, or going to high schools when people are doing units on the Salem witch trials and things like that, so that it's not just the Crucible that we have available to us. We can actually get a real story from that time. And then we've been approached a couple of times actually by some distributors who they see the trailer and they say, this looks like a film we want to distribute. And we're like, it's a weird film, so do you want to? And they watch the whole thing. Yeah, if you watch the whole thing first, I would love it, but let's watch the whole thing. But it is possible that it could end up on a view on demand kind of platform like Amazon Prime, where people can pay per view to watch it, or things like that. Optimistically, it would be nice to make our budget back. I don't foresee it doing much better than that, but I do foresee it being something that we can use to say, now watch what we can make after this with a proper budget, and we'll make it commercial and we can sell it. Does that help? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered if the possibility of getting it into schools and using it in the educational piece of it. I've always believed that younger generations don't see things like Schindler's List or, where there's real people and real things happening to them. It's just 5 pages in their history book.
Yeah.
And I just wondered if there's
That's
a way to
changed.
kind of work that in.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And so the comment this time is the idea that it would be good in an educational environment because kids aren't really seeing the reality of what happened to these events. And that's awful because these kinds of things are going to repeat themselves if we don't show the reality of it.
Exactly.
And I love the Crucible, but it does sensationalize the witch trials a bit. It makes them something, I don't know.
It's
They're
not,
not.
it's not a historical film.
Yeah,
It's
it's
based
not.
on history, but Miller takes license on, and they tried to stay as close to the original as they possibly could. Anything you're gonna have to say, I mean, even if you're adapting Dickens, you kind of have to say, well, it's extremely theatrical, but we do have to add some things. And one of the things I will not necessarily disagree with Cherie, because I never disagree with Cherie. But one of the things was really interesting to me at this last festival, how much I learned. I mean, I used to tell my kids who wanted to be filmmakers, and my whole experience in filmmaking was as an actor. But I had been teaching film as a 100 level class, and you listen to all the people, and you hear Orson Welles say, "Yeah, I spent my life begging for money to do films," And so I would say, if you want to be a filmmaker, get used to asking for money. The interesting thing was, as we went to this festival, I learned so much that I literally said, I don't know how you do this. How do you do this? And I realized there's people that are in the industry that all they care about is money. And, or I just have to do a film. I don't care if it's good or bad. The thing that I have so much hope for this, and again, it's kind of the guy watching it eating crumble cookies, it is better than I think they realize. And so my expectation is, as we go to festivals, and we'll be at Zion's next time, we're hoping to be in London in the end of April and some other things like that. But my expectation is you never know. And I also would say patience always, because when Matt said the other night, he said, these 3 had to convince me to go back to this project and reshoot it. And for heaven's sakes, if we hadn't, it would have been a wonderful film. It would not be what it is. And so my thing is, I don't know. My belief is in life is that things are meant to be, and if they are meant to be, they will be. And I don't understand that, but this film needs to be seen. It needs to be seen. And we should make money at it. I want money.
And then you.
So it sounds like you got everything in from all of your research and you're both descendants. Is there anything that your heart sore about that had sometimes things like Carmen told us in our writing class, you put, it's not this story. Your heart sore, but you realize it belongs somewhere else. Is there anything your heart sore over that didn't make it in?
Repeat the question.
Nana asked, is there anything that we are heart sore, I like the way you put that, about something that we felt should have been in the film that is not?
Yeah.
Go,
You okay?
No, I don't.
You'll come up with them.
I will.
So for me personally, so I am descended from Anne's daughter, Sarah. And when we started it being a short film, we said, well, we're not gonna put every one of her children in it. We'll have Andrew, who Lori is descended through. We'll have Mary, because Mary ends up in the jail with her. And we'll have Hannah, because Hannah is the one murdered by Hugh Stone. So I actually am a little heart sore that I didn't get to put my ancestor in there, that we didn't get to have all of her family in there, because there's another son as well that we didn't get to have in. And if we had known from the beginning we were making a feature, there would definitely been an argument to flesh that out a little bit more and to introduce the whole family as opposed to just the 3 that we were focused on.
Oh,
Yeah, I do mention her. I do, like, we do talk about Sarah, but she's not in it.
And we had talked about this because, and it's really important to me because that if only we had known at the beginning. And that's where I think this kind of serendipity, this sense that chance leads you where you need to go, because I don't think it would have been as good a film had we known from the beginning. We were all just going in there saying, okay, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna do this? And they're magicians, and she's an amazing actress, and I am so good at crafty. But Heartsore is the constable. They cut so much of the constable.
Omar played the constable.
That I mean, it's just sad, because it really was a way about the constable, you know.
Just a note of irony, the constable that comes and arrests
Yeah.
Anne and takes her to prison is the brother of the man whose wife was ill.
Yeah,
So the accusing girls and him
Yeah.
were related. And that's how it was.
And that could have been really fun to explore.
Yeah.
It
It
really
could have been, yeah. Did
but
you-
it, oh, go ahead.
How many other festivals have you decided to enter?
She asks, how many festivals have we decided to enter? I think we have, we have applied. To how many?
Oh, man, it's at least 10 others
At
at
least
this point.
10 more, maybe even 12 or 13.
Yeah.
As many as possible.
And as many as possible, and you're not automatically in. You have to be
I
accepted
know,
and,
I've done
you
that.
know, yeah. We were just so appalled that we were not accepted at Sundance, you know. Then when we found out there were, what was it, like 18,750 applicants?
They only picked 150.
And they took 150.
Yeah,
So we didn't feel that bad after.
you know.
Originally in the movie too, I was slated to play her husband. And for reasons we won't divulge, that changed, and it was my decision as much as
It
anyone's.
was, yeah.
And here's one thing we've talked about, and we talked about it, it was in a workshop too that was talked about. It wasn't a matter of what, I mean, the thing was, when Joel plays her husband, Joel Applegate, who is a magnificent actor. And I watched that and I thought, oh my gosh, that was the right decision. It was just the right decision. And when, as an actor, when you see another actor take a role and say, yeah, they did it better than I would have, that's cool. That's cool. And so, yeah.
Anything else?
I wondered, how long did it take you, you talked about 6 months with your grant to write your one-woman show, and how long did it take you to adapt the screen?
Yeah.
So
So the question is, how long did it take us to adapt the one-woman show into the screenplay? And so this is kind of fun. We actually went and saw the one-woman show in October of 2022, at the Romance Theater in Rexburg. From that moment, so my husband and I, instead of getting a hotel from Rexburg, we just drove home that night. So the whole way home, we were talking out how we would want to film this. So we had a 3-hour production meeting essentially on the way home. That's fun. And then, you know, talked to these guys maybe a week later, a couple of days later, and started right into, I think we started the screenplay. We had her send us her material right after that. And I think I was on another film at the time, so I don't think I got to start the screenplay until like December of that year of 2022. And then we were filming in, we wanted March, I think it was May. We were filming in May of 2020, no, was it? 2023?
No, what about
actually,
2022?
So 2021 was when we went to the show. We're filming in May of 2022.
Yeah. That's right.
We got to show the 50-minute version of it in October of 2022 at the Romance. It was like a year and 2 days after we saw the original show. And then after that screening was when we decided, okay, the audience really liked this. They wanted more of the story. We could make more of the story. And this is where my husband likes to joke about how it took us probably 2 or 3 months to convince him. And it was like, well, I don't know, write something and let me see. Well, I don't know, let me see how it fits. Well, I don't know. So I've got this whole new script written and it's like, where's my green light? Can we do this? And then we filmed the new scenes I think that's when we did it in March. In the garage again,
Yeah,
right?
so,
All
March or April, it was
All
cold.
I know is one time it was freezing and then the other time it was roasting.
That's all I did. So the first time around, we wanted to shoot in March because this garage doesn't have any kind of temperature control. No insulation, just bare to the elements, but we wanted March because it would be cooler and it'd be easier to heat it up and cool it down. But it took forever to build the set, so we ended up pushing it into May, and then we ended up pushing some shooting days into July. And like the temperature in the garage on some of those days was 90 degrees.
Oh,
It was awful. And then when we did the reshoots, we're like, hey, we're aiming for March this time. And those were freezing. We had to, there's this trick in Back to the Future 3 where Marty McFly and Doc are at a drive-in and it's supposed to be kind of summertime, but it was frigid and freezing there. And in between takes, they had those actors sucking on ice cubes so that their breath wouldn't show in the take. And so we had Lori doing stuff like that. She has the hand warmers and we're feeding her Coke and like, and
Take a swig of Coke and your breath
yeah,
will
let's
show.
try and get your breath not show.
yeah.
It worked for like the first couple of breaths, but it was so cold. So then we had to go in and digitally add some breath to other scenes. So it was a whole adventure.
Yeah. And if you know me, there's no problem telling me to drink a Coke. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
well, and as you've listened to this, and here's the interesting thing to me. We've said this any number of times. Can you imagine where we are right now from where we were 3 years ago? We would never have imagined this happening. I mean, it was just not part of the books. I mean, the idea of I mean, it just wasn't there. And my thing that's so interesting, again, it goes along with a kind of serendipity, a kind of sense of if you have a story and you believe in it, but go through the hard work. There was any number of times that, and there was a point where we said, okay, it's time to quit. I mean, it's done, you know, this is too hard. And, but there's a sense of, and it's the story that runs you that says, no, the story has to be told correctly. There's a sense of saying, if a story is told in less than what it really needs, then you've done something wrong. You've really messed something up in the cosmos. And this is where I think, and I have such belief in this film, because it was 2 hard years. It was 2 very hard years.
And there's something too about the idea of telling the story correctly. We knew going into it, this was low budget. We knew it was abstract and strange to shoot a whole feature film in a garage and to just have black backgrounds instead of actually going to a gallows or something like that. But we also knew that the story was that interesting and that compelling. And we knew that the story was what was going to push our audiences past the unconventional filmmaking.
Well, we did bring the film if you want to see a scene or anything, or if we're short for time, we can.
Yeah, well, I think she needs to cut off the
Okay, go
live
ahead.
stream, and then that's right now. If we cut off the live stream, then we can keep talking.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so thank you, everybody, like in person, as well as the live stream audience. And let's get a round of applause. So we have Cherie Julander. Omar Hansen. And the Ashton family helping to host here. And I also want to let the people know who are live streamed. So I will be putting in the YouTube description of the stream that you can find later, the trailer itself. So I know that for those who are in person, we had this nice screen, but for the more crisp version, or even actually if you were here too, you probably will want to rewatch it, especially after listening to all this. Just go back to this and you'll be able to find it through the Story Crossroads YouTube channel under the live. It might not show on the channel itself, but it is under live. And then you can also find it under storycrossroads.org/house concerts. Not right now, but eventually it will be there too, in case you need to reference it again. And I know this is different. Normally it's more performance, but this one, like we said in there, it's the story behind the story. And there's plenty of stories that are with that. And with Story Crossroads, we love the blending of arts. We feel that this beautiful thing of merging and blending and really jumping into these art forms is another way to tell a story. And this is great. So we just want to say that. For those who linger here in person, I guess that's the perks of in person. If you happen to be in Utah, you can maybe watch more clips and things here or ask more questions. But otherwise, I know we're longer than we usually are, but hold on. There is one of our watchers named Wendy, which I know you guys know. She wants to say congratulations to Cherie and Lori, two artists that she loves. She loved the play and she can't wait to see the film. So yes, you can say one. And then I know Suzanne was excited too, in case you wanted to say anything, or any of our other watchers. This is your chance. You can type something and I'll try to read it. Oh, here we go. From Suzanne, she says, very interested. I want to see the film.
Yay.
Oh, which is another thing that's important. If you are in Utah, or you're just going to have a trip to Utah, you can come out on March 1st. It's going to be shown, I Be a Witch, at the Sierra Shell. And that is at what time?
8:30.
8:30 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And there is the ticket price is
$10.
$10. And it'll just be a fun night. So recommend doing that. If you are not in Utah,
We are going to be entering into lots of other festivals, so if you want to follow us on Facebook or go to our website, we're going to be posting where it will be screening.
so what you can do, if you're not in Utah, look up film festivals, and if they have not applied to them, that are independent film, then let them know.
Yeah, if they're
Right?
in your area. let
You
us
can
know.
email, and if you email info@storycrossroads.org, we will connect and let them know about where they need to be placing this, or maybe eventually you said Amazon Prime or something. It's not yet.
Yeah,
Here's
hopefully.
Hopio, so we're
Yeah.
trying to make sure that happens. And then we also, someone else, Sunty Love says, already bought our tickets. So someone already got it. Oh, and then we do have the next house concert. It will be on Friday, March 22nd, 7 to 8 p.m. Mountain Time. It will be Annie and Dan Eastman. They're also known as Harvest Home. It will be Celtic songs and stories. So it'll be in West Jordan, but you can also live stream or a blend. And again, we're going to cut the stream so that we'll just continue hanging out here. So you can donate to storycrossroads.org/donate. And that way it helps the artists and Story Crossroads. So thanks again.
Wow. Any little funds that we may have come in will go to more festival applications.
Yeah.
There are treats up here, but we want to see any, we can hook up a computer and just see little
And there's
whatever.
no pressure and.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think it's good. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm dominating all the questions.
That's all right.
I followed you guys all through your path from afar, and I'm so proud of you. So proud of you.
Thank you.
Everything you've done and your adaptation and being an artist with writing.
Thank you.
I went all the way through school and talked about starving actors and maybe
Well,
we're
they're still starving.
Yeah. Well, some of us are not starving, yeah.
I am the chubbiest
Yeah.
woman in prison.
Thank you.
still performing this as one woman show.
It's actually a hope, right?
But that's one of the things I've asked her. I said, now that I've seen the movie, I'd love to see the one woman show. So I thought. we
I
need to find a
would
way.
like to start, actually, I'm
down here.
in talks with the North Andover church congregation that would have been Ann Foster's congregation. They're talking about getting a grant to bring me in to do the one-person show, so. And I would love to tour that again too. I want to let the film ride its course
But I think
before I
we're trying
really
to
start.
speak to that